that you enjoy. A quick thank you to the T5 peeps. Bob the Dragon, Datamagnet, Cat Crab Lobster, Duck Machine, Try Again 95, Astraya the Dreamer, Mezec, Budic Joel, Germanchemist, Casper Arnholtz, and Chaos to Mist. Thank you very much. Googly Eyes, or An Alien's Guide to Human Toddler Management. Written by NarodnayaToast. "Dan, why are there googly eyes in my goddamn closet?" roared Barn. He was half-kneading, holding a set of microscope slides in one hand, staring at his discarded cupboard door. Dan, who was disassembling a holodisplay device in the opposite end of the table to Barn, sheepishly looked up the towering alien. Sorry boss, kid got a hold of a pack again." "Well, tell your kid I will fine them for desecration of property." Ugh. Boss, she's only 9 months. "I don't care how old she is." Barn stood up. He's 7.5 feet towering over Den's 6. "I learned not to mess with important things when I was 3 days old." Den looked like a deer caught in the headlights. "Yes, boss, sorry, boss, won't happen again." He scurried out of the lab, crossing himself as he went. "Ugh, humans," Barn muttered. "If they didn't have opposable thumbs, I'd file a lot of them. And if I didn't get another pint of coffee in me, I'm going to throw something," he thought, writing some research notes on the sheet of paper. Several days later, Barn was in his study, surrounded by piles of books. The door was ajar. He didn't notice that he was no longer alone until he heard a thump of a book falling over. He said, getting to his feet. Glancing over to the source of the noise, he stared in surprise. A human toddler, tiny in comparison to Barn, looked up at him, eyes wide. She gargled something incomprehensible, then started crawling towards him. On her head, she wore a tiny hat that said Mina. Sorry, what was that?" Barn asked. Mina gurgled again. Barn muttered. "Is this translator working?" He tapped his earpiece. "Do you understand me?" He sat on the floor to get a better look at the tiny human. Mina crawled over to him and started pulling at his slipper. Barn looked utterly lost. He stared at Mina as she gargled again, crawled over to where his hand was resting, and put her hand on top of his. He felt a strange surge of warmth at this, as if ancient instincts had reawakened. Seconds later, Den sprinted into the room to find his daughter repeatedly hitting Barn on the hand. "For heck," he said, dodging piles of books as he crossed the room. I'm sorry. She crawled off and I wasn't paying attention and she just got out here and had access to hatch. Please don't fire me." He continued spitting out garbled words as he scooped Mina up in his arms. Barn said nothing as Den ran back out of the room, a delighted Mina gurgling at his wake. "Why is she so small?" he thought. There was a tiny imprint of warmth on his hand where hers had been resting. The next day, Barn and Den were back in the lab, each working on their own projects. "Den?" Barn asked, putting a slide under his microscope. "Yes, sir, what?" Den almost dropped his slide. "Why doesn't your child speak?" "What?" "My translator didn't work for her. I want to know why." Den looked confused. "She can't speak yet, boss." "Why not? Have you not trained her sufficiently?" Den gave a nervous giggle. No, boss. Humans don't learn to speak till but after they're born." Barn was silent for a moment as he mulled it over, eventually replied. Interesting." Den was surprised into silence. Barn seemed lost in thought. Den snuck out of the room to avoid any more questions. The next day, another technician walked into Barn's study. "What's that?" the technician asked, spotting that Barn was reading a book. "Not of your concern," Barn replied. "Critical mission research." The technician peered closer. "That's a human parenting book." "Critical mission research," Barn roared, causing the technician to scurry away. After that, Barn didn't see Mina all for weeks. He assumed that whatever security protocols she had broken to get into his study had been reinforced by her father. Most likely, she was in Den's living quarters. The next time he saw her was when he was in a storage room full of boxes. "Ugh," he muttered as he walked in. Who put these here? This organization is dreadful. Unbeknownst to him, Mina had found her way in as well, half crawling and half walking across the room. Bob heard the gurgling of surprise. He turned to find Mina reaching up to a box on a shelf from which some fabric hung almost to the ground. She took a hold of the fabric in both hands and began to tug, giggling to herself. The box itself began to slide and then to fall. Bob spotted the danger instantly, sprinting across the room in half a second. He scooped Mina up with one hand and shoved the falling box away with the other. It fell onto the ground, smashing with the contents within. Mina, startled by the noise, began to cry. Bob said, "Do not worry, child. I saved you from certain doom." Mina cried harder. Bob looked down at the crying toddler, puzzled. For a moment he thought, and then remembering something from the book that he'd read. He began to rock her back and forth. "Shh," he whispered. "You are not doomed today." After a few minutes of this, Mina's cries lessened. Eventually, she fell asleep in Bob's giant hand. Later, Dan answered a knock on the door to his apartment to find Bob offering back a sleeping Mina. Dan stalwartly refused to ask any questions relating to the matter. After that, for reasons nobody except Dan would quite understand, Bob installed a number of new safety protocols across the research complex, including an astronomical number of safety gates. Nobody was brave enough to challenge him on that matter. Yet everybody noticed the shift in Bob's demeanor. He was becoming less angry with each passing day. A month later, Bob was sipping on his pint of coffee when the door to his study opened. Standing there was Den. Mina was just behind him, walking unsteadily. "Boss, Mina's talking. Thought you'd want to know." Bob smiled. "Really? Incredible." He looked over at Mina, who's now rushing across the room towards him. "Hello, tiny human. Mina, apologies." Mina ran straight into his leg and almost fell over. Bob steadied her with a hand. She looked up and smiled, and then spoke. "Big, big." She pointed up at his face. "Big," and then pointed at his pint of coffee. "Big." A passing technician stuck his head in through the door just in time to see this unfold. From then on, all anybody could call Bob was Big. When someone bought Bob a badge with his new nickname, he felt a strange sense of pride. He, of course, wore it 24/7. "Hey, Big," Dan said one day as he shared a pint of coffee with Bob. 2 years had passed since Bob had become known as his new name. "Yes, I got a job offer, closer to home. See. You ain't mind?" Bob smiled. "You should prioritize family, Dan. When will you leave?" "Few months. Got some paperwork and stuff to sort." "Very well." The day Dan and Mina left was a sad one indeed. Mina was 4 now, and she ruled the research complex with an iron fist. Nobody, least of all Bob, was able to resist giving her snacks to answer various and many questions about everything. "Dan," Bob began, as he and Dan and Mina stood next to the transport ship. "Hi, Big. You're welcome back here anytime. So is Mina." Dan wiped a tear from the corner of his eye. That means a lot. Thanks." "Bye-bye, Big. See you soon," Mina called out from behind Dan. Bob knelt down as Mina ran over to him and gave his arm a big hug. He removed his translator earpiece from his ear, pressing it to her hand. He looked back at Dan. "A gift. See to it that she meets many people. I've read that it's good for small humans." Dan did his best not to cry, and failed. From that day, the research complex was much quieter. Sometime later, Bob came across a tiny pink hat in a cupboard. On its front read Mina. None of his technicians were brave enough to ask why they'd seen him crying that day. 20 years later, Bob, as always, was in his study in his lab, reading. He had aged little in the intervening years, although his caffeine consumption had decreased somewhat. There was a knock. He looked up at the door, smiled at the giant googly eyes that he had stuck onto it, then got up to answer the door. "Hi, Big, a bomb," she said. "That's me. Please state your business." This woman was at least 2 feet smaller than him. My name is Mina. My dad worked for you, right?" She reached up to tap an earpiece. You gave me this." At once, he invited her in for a jug of tea. It transpired that Dan had retired not too long ago. She explained how he had recommended this research station as a place to learn and work. Baum, of course, offered her a job on the spot. She decided not to ask why there was at least 15 safety gates per corridor. She did, however, smile as she noticed a tiny hat with the word Mina stitched onto the front, framed over the door leading to the storage cupboard. Several weeks later, Baum was back in his study. He was sipping at a cup of tea. Mina had kindly made a pot for him, brewed it to his exact specifications, though how she knew what those were was a mystery. He plucked a book from the shelf and sat back in his chair. Baum looked down, then, noticing something different about the book. "Why are there googly eyes on my goddamn book?" he muttered. He knew that only one person in this research station could have done this, yet he smiled. End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed.